What's up, YouTube? It's Vin here, and, most of my videos, if you watch my videos, are of albums that aren't totally obscure, but maybe a little under the radar. You know, I talk about bands that I really love. I talk about bands that are maybe kind of a little bit out there, a little harder to find. But I really want to talk about albums that are not only classic in my mind, but had a huge impact on me when I was first getting into music. And I have a feeling this week coming up, we're already in the week, so it's Monday, I'm going to be talking about just classic albums that everybody knows and everybody loves. And so I'm going to be going over, like, Hendrix, maybe some more Sabbath, stuff like that. But what is the number one band that got me into music, you might ask? The Beatles. The Beatles, everybody knows who the Beatles are. At least everybody should know who the Beatles are. Because the Beatles revolutionized music, basically. When they were coming out, you know, albums were basically singles or just the hit songs with just crap. You know what I mean? Just crap and filler and like throwaway songs. And it's funny how huge of an impact and influence the Beatles have. Pop music, rock music, music in general, just absolutely huge. Huge impact. So, I got into the Beatles when I was young. I was, like, in 3rd grade, and I remember I knew who they were, but I didn't, you know, I had, like, Yellow Summer, something, it wasn't a lot. And I was upstairs in my room, my brother and my dad were, doing something in his room, and my brother came up to me, and he was like, oh, yeah, you know, you gotta hear this, and I'm like, what is it? He's like, the Beatles. So, this is my first time really hearing the Beatles and paying attention. And my 3rd grade mind, 8-year-olds, like maybe 9 years old, I'm not sure, just got blown away. I was like, oh my god, I heard like I Am the Walrus, Blue Jay Way, stuff like that. And I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. It was unbelievable. And one of their best albums, because every album they did was good, and you know what I mean? Just every album they did was great. But perhaps my favorite album is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Often considered to be the greatest album of all time. Is it worthy of that title? Well, since I haven't listened to every album in the world, I don't know. But I can say this. It's good. Obviously. Now, some interesting things about this album. It was where the Beatles it was after Revolver, and Revolver kind of embraced that kind of psychedelic feel that was kind of flowing through the 60s at the time. But Sgt. Pepper takes that kind of psychedelic feel you got on songs like, Love You Too, off of Revolver, with George Harrison's kind of Indian instrumentation, takes that idea and runs with it, and just creates this lush, kind of big, very, very expansive album. Every single song is different. There's not one song that sounds similar at all. They all have different traits. They all have different instruments used and tempos and everything they do is different. So it's like there's so much variation. There's no way you can get bored while listening to the album, and that's one thing I love. And the thing with the album is it's very atmospheric. Every song kind of makes you think of something, kind of creates like an image in your head, like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Third track, one of the best, which is literally, the whole song is like a description, basically. And, Sgt. Pepper's, Within and Without You. The Benefit for Mr. Kite, Fixing a Hole. Just great songs. And a cool thing about the sounds too is the production. The production on Beatles records always kind of interested me because they're not like really like glossy and like clean, but the mix is like perfection. You hear the bass, guitars, drums, vocals, every other 8 million instruments that are used, you know what I mean? There really is an orchestration on the Beatles albums that I really like. There's always some, not always, but a lot of the time, especially on this album, like on The Benefit for Mr. Kite, or Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, you hear, all these weird instruments, very circus-like instruments, because that's the theme of the song, and it just puts you in a mindset, and when you just close your eyes and just listen to it, it like takes you to where the Beatles are describing, and it's phenomenal. And again, the psychedelic nature of the album is great. Again, With and Without You, probably one of my favorite Beatles songs. Really heady. You get Indian kind of instrumentation, like sitars and stuff like that, really 60s, really classic 60s sound, psychedelic sound. The lyrics are great, and it's almost like talking about, it's like saying this album is good, and a lot of the other albums I'm going to be talking about, saying this album is good is like saying, if you don't breathe, you'll die. You know what I mean? It's like everyone knows it. Everyone knows who the Beatles are. Everyone knows why the Beatles are as good as they are. And it's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Of course. The flow on this album, like I said, every song is different. Every song has some sort of theme to it, or like a story to it. So it makes listening to the album very engaging. It's not like, say I picked up like a heavy metal record or like a hardcore punk record or anything like that. You know what's coming. You know what I mean? You know what's gonna be next. Not exactly, of course, but you know the sounds you know you're most likely to expect. With this album and a lot of the Beatles albums, you have no idea what's gonna go. You know what I mean? You just don't know. Every song is like just totally different, and that's what helps the flow perfectly. So flow, great. Again, production, really good. It's clean, but it's not glossy. The drums and like bass will be on one earphone, and the vocals and like, sitar or something, whatever instrument's being used, will be on that side. And it really lends to that kind of, it feels like there's shit going all around you. And it's just great. I feel like the Beatles really tried to make it as immersive as possible, and so it's more of it's like a listening. It's like an experience more than it is just listening to an album that sounds good, that you like. So, production's great. Overall, perfect 10. Perfect 10. Not only is it one of the albums that got me into music itself, but it's one of the albums that really had a huge impact on music, just absolutely massive. And another interesting thing about this album, excuse me, my nose itches, keep wiping my nose. This album was released the day that the Summer of Love started in '67. That's awesome. That just shows the impact. It was like it was meant to be. Sgt. Pepper drops, Summer of Love, psychedelic, awesome. I wish I grew up in the 60s, man. I wish I grew up in the 60s. But, yeah. That's really all I gotta say. This is an absolute classic album. And all this week I'm gonna be talking about classic albums that I think really stand out, that really defined what it means to make music and influenced music and influenced me. So, thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time.